The 90th sequel, revisiting a quarrel. Interesting quarrel. Interesting? Yes, a quarrel is interesting also sometimes. Between Sir Apollo Kaggwa and his co-regent, Stanslaus Mugwanya, the OMULAMUZI. We will also look at a very important letter which I have found at Makerere in the archives, where Batulumaayo Zimbe protests plans for the Kabaka's visit to London, and in doing so accuses Apollo Kaggwa of killing his father, and all this in writing. And so, I'm Christopher Amos Chikomeko, the author of these sequels, celebrating the Church of Uganda at 150 years. We celebrate the church and we also celebrate the state. Welcome. Buganda's co-regent, Stanslaus Mugwanya, the OMULAMUZI, who at one time was even a co-Katikkiro, had a very big disagreement with Sir Apollo Kaggwa. And Makerere archives have kept these important documents. The first one is dated the 19th of December, 1910, and it's a reply. Apollo Kaggwa is replying to Stanslaus Mugwanya. He remonstrates with Mugwanya for accusing him that he decides alone the affairs of state. Kaggwa in the letter says that he only works through the Luchiko. And Apollo Kaggwa rejects Mugwanya's suggestion that the regents meet to decide things on their own without involving others, say for example in the appointment of chiefs. And that after they have decided, they simply take what they have decided to the Luchiko for rubber stamping. Now, Kaggwa in his letter denies these two allegations, and he says that they are inconsistent, and he rejects both without giving much more details. According to the letter, and it shows that they are undergoing arbitration. Sir Apollo Kaggwa and OMULAMUZI are undergoing arbitration, and the arbitration is being done by the very top acting governor, Stanley Tompkins. According to that letter, Kaggwa writes that Mugwanya has boycotted office for the previous 2 years, and that only him and Kizito Kisingiri were making decisions. However, including court decisions, remember being OMULAMUZI a judge, including judgments that they have made, they were all being made together with Kizito Kisingiri. And that after they have decided, they will take what they had agreed to Mugwanya to simply sign, and that Mugwanya had never refused, that he had always signed what they took to him. So in that letter, Apollo wondered whether they should actually stop taking these judgments and other letters to him for signature, since he was denying them. And of course, that's why they needed to reconcile. That's why they had to go to Governor Stanley Tompkins, the acting governor, to sort this one out. Now, Apollo Kaggwa in the same letter accuses Mugwanya that he has very bad manners, insulting him before juniors. That means Mugwanya was in the manner of insulting Apollo Kaggwa. And Kaggwa is saying in the letter, before his juniors. And that he was doing that because Mugwanya was senior to him. Of course, Mugwanya was a little bit older than Apollo Kaggwa. He, however, now taking his authority, asked him or argued him to stop that behavior in that letter. It was not a very simple letter, I can assure you. Now, Apollo then concludes that he's happy with their reconciliation that is going on, and that they have already been at a tea. They have already gone for some tea with the Bwana Tompkins, and that Bwana Tompkins had ordered them to reconcile, and that it was a direct order which they should implement. misunderstandings between the very top in Buganda. However, in the same documents is buried another one received by Apollo Kaggwa from the Reverend Batulumaayo Zimbe. Quite an interesting letter. This one was dated the 22nd of December 1910, and it cautions Apollo Kaggwa about continuing with the plans to send Kabaka to Europe when the Kabaka was still so young. Now, at the end of 1910, the Kabaka was around 14 years. Yeah, he was about 14 years. So according to Reverend Batulumaayo Zimbe, the Kabaka was too young to travel to Europe. In fact, in the letter, Batulumaayo Zimbe tells Apollo Kaggwa, people will wonder whether you are going, people will wonder whether the Kabaka was going to UK or to Europe to plead for us. What is he going there to plead for us? And then he says that in fact the country will blame you, Kaggwa, saying that you killed his father, now you want to persecute the son. That was the first time that Batulumaayo was putting in writing, saying that you killed the father, now you want to persecute the son. The first time that Batulumaayo Zimbe is writing such a statement, and it is seen by everybody because it's a document. He then in the same letter goes on to say the following, that he has 6 points that he needs to be addressed by Apollo Kaggwa. You should not fear to address issues concerning the Kabaka. Confront whoever you have to confront and assure them that the Kabaka is not going anywhere. That was Reverend Batulumaayo Zimbe writing to Apollo Kaggwa. He then says, as point number 2, that the Kabaka's proposal to the UK, the visit, he is to be accompanied by very junior officials, and that is wrong. If at all the Kabaka is to go, he should be accompanied by the topmost people, the most high-ranking officers in the kingdom. Okay, that particular point is also reflected at the footnote of his letter, so I will be going back to that particular point. Then he raises point number 3. The Kabaka is too young to travel to the United Kingdoms. I think that is a repetition. So it's point number 1, and again it's point number 3. Point number 4, that Europeans are very tricky and have sinister motives in taking Kabaka Ccwa to the United Kingdoms. I wonder what Batulumaayo Zimbe was in his head. Did he think that they will hijack him, kidnap him, kill him? Why was he so scared? Does Batulumaayo Zimbe know something about Mwanga in the Seychelles, that he doesn't trust the UK, he doesn't trust the Bazungu? Is Batulumaayo Zimbe not saying some things in his letter? I wonder personally. But item number 5, he says, he proposed that if Ccwa must go, then Zakaria Kizito Kisingiri should accompany him. If not, as a matter of fact, not only him, but even Sechibobo Hamu Mukasa should be on the group. That Blasio Kaggwa, the son of Apollo Kaggwa, who was a chief, should also accompany the Kabaka, because this Blasio Kaggwa had already been to England for studies, so he knew England, so that he should accompany the young king. And that also there should be a priest of the church to travel as they pray during the journey. Now, I wonder whether he was proposing himself in that particular case, but in the letter simply says a priest of the church, and Reverend Batulumaayo Zimbe was of course a priest of the church, very senior at that. Okay, number 6. He then says, if the Sechibobo Hamu Mukasa refuses to go, then you can appoint Samuel Mukasa the Kangao. Now, Kangao was the very senior officer in the kingdom, the chief county of the county chief of Bulemeezi County. Very, very senior. He then repeated his prayer that Ccwa was too young to travel. Almost the third time he's mentioning the same thing in that letter. He then invokes Ccwa's mother, Evelyn Kulabako, not being happy about his young son's journey, and that the people will say, I want you to listen very carefully what Batulumaayo Zimbe is writing in this letter, and that the people will say, Apollo Kaggwa does not get tired of killing Buganda monarchs abroad, having killed his father in the past and now going for his son in the same way overseas. Batulumaayo concluded his letter by signing it B.M. Zimbe, and in brackets he put the words, remember the saying, Ndi Mugezi, in semicolon. And that ended the letter. What does this letter show us and prove to us in this very sequel? That the sequels we went through of how Mwanga was shot and his murder covered up, and how Batulumaayo Zimbe was in the initial party that went there to baptize Mwanga, must all be true. Here is a man who has now put pen to paper more than 10 years later. He is now adducing evidence unknowingly. May the good Lord bless us all.